Hey guys, I'm Aaron and I'm with Baby Like USA, and in this video I'm going to show you how to take in a pair of pants. The first step is to try the pants on. This way you know how much to actually take in. Once the pants are on, you need to pinch the waistband above the center of the back pockets to determine how much to take in. If there's a tag in the way, you'll need to remove that tag. That's where the seam ripper comes in handy. So when you're taking the tag off, we're going to start by just taking the thread out of one of the seams here. And then we're just going to kind of fold the pocket back. And notice how I have my seam ripper. I have the long part to the outside. This is going to reduce the possibility of me ripping the tag or the blue jeans. I'm not going to take the whole tag off. I'm just going to take most of it off. That way I can get it folded back out of my way, because we definitely want it out of the way, but we don't want it to get sewn into our seam. Another reason why I'm not taking the whole tag off is because I want to ensure that it goes back in the exact place that it was in the beginning. That way it all looks as natural as possible. The next step is to put the pants back on, pinch the waistband above the center of the back pockets, and then add your pins so that we know where to sew. So I'm pinching the waistband above the center of the back pockets, and you can see I've already removed the tag, so it's out of my way. So I'm just going to pinch right above the pocket. Let me do that on the other side as well. I'm just going to put my pin in, and don't worry about it if while you're pinning you don't get your pins directly in the center of the back pockets. You can always go back once the pants are off and repin to make sure everything looks good. Okay, so the pants are pinned. I want to double check and make sure that I have the right amount pinned on each side. So I'm going to take my ruler and measure from the pin to the fold of the fabric. So on the right hand side, that's 3/4 of an inch. On the left hand side, that is 3/4 of an inch. So I am 3/4 of an inch from the pin to the fold of the fabric. Now I have the pants folded with the fold to the outside of the pants. The fold needs to be to the inside because that's my inside seam. That's where I'm going to be sewing to. I'm going to take the pin out and finger press. That way I'll have a little bit of a fold on the waistband, and I'm going to flip it. And then pin 3/4 of an inch from the fold in. Okay, and now I'm going to do that to the other side. Finger press there, just kind of hold it with my fingers. And this is something that doesn't have to be an exact science. It doesn't have to be hard. So I have the pants pinned. Now I'm going to turn them wrong side out. Once I get them turned wrong side out, I will take my chalk pen and my ruler, and I will mark where I am going to sew. What I'm trying to achieve here is I'm going to mark from where my pin is and then fade that mark to the fold of my fabric, creating a dart. So let me show you how that's done. So, and something to keep in mind is we can see here the top of our pocket. Okay, this is the wrong side of our pants, so we know the pocket is here. So let's say, okay, 1.25 inches down from the seam, that's where the top of our pocket is. So I'm gonna have my dart maybe end about 1/2 inch from the seam, right there. So that means when I lay my ruler on my fabric, right here is where my mark is. okay, that I made. It's a 1/2 inch from the seam. So I'm just going to bring that mark off the fabric. There we are. I have a nice heavy line. So now that I have made my mark, which is the mark is actually where I'm going to sew, I'm going to feel right here, there's the seam here, and I'm going to feel that with my fingers, make sure everything's lined up. I'm going to grab some pins, put some pins in. I don't want the fabric to shift on me. I don't want to open my pants up, or rather turn them right side out and this seam right here not line up. All right, so now I'm going to turn my pants over and I will mark and pin the other side. All right, so now we have pinned and we are ready to sew. Now what we are going to do is we will sew from the waistband down. Now I am going to thread my needle, but first I need to change the needle. I'm going to change the needle from what's in the machine to a jeans needle, size 116. And the reason for that, I could use a 90-14, but the denim in these pants is quite thick and we're going to be sewing through multiple layers. So I want to ensure that I have a needle that's not going to deflect. I want it to be strong enough, and that way I get the most consistent stitch that I can. Before I change a needle, I always lower the presser foot. This gives my hands more room so that I can actually get in to change the needle. So I loosen the needle screw and I place the flat part of the needle to the back. Push it all the way up as far as it'll go and snug my needle bar screw. So now I'm going to sew. So I'm going to slide the fabric under the foot. If the fabric doesn't want to slide under the foot due to limitations on height, or rather if the feed dogs are catching the fabric, I can push up on my presser foot lever and slide the fabric under the foot. And then once I get the fabric positioned where I need it, I can lower the foot back down. Now I am going to lower my needle to the exact place I want to start, and right there is not where I want to start, so I'm going to raise my presser foot and slide the fabric under just a little more and lower my needle. Right there is exactly where I want to start. So now that I have the needle in the lowered position, I'm going to reach in and kind of pull my pin out a little bit. Lay it to the side, make a few stitches. I'm just following the chalk line. Stitching right off of the fabric, right at the fold. And now we're going to stitch the other side. Now that I've sewn my seam, I want you to make note that your waistband is lined up here and the seam above the pocket is lined up. We're going for a nice professional look, and with these areas being lined up, that's going to help ensure that the professional look is what you get. So what you need to do is rip out about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 on each side of the fold, from the fold out on the bottom and the top. This way it gives you plenty of room to pull the waistband up and out of the way. That's the whole key here, is we want the waistband out of the way. So once you have unstitched the waistband, you're going to have two pieces. You have the front side and you have the back side. This is the side that actually goes to your waist. So they're separate now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the pant part, we're just going to put it back onto the front piece, and I'm going to make sure that everything is still lined up where it should be. And take a pin, put it in. All right, everything looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take this other part of the waistband, get it out of the way. I'm going to flip up that seam allowance, and we're going to take our ruler, and we know that that is 3/4 of an inch from the edge. So what I'm going to do here, and this is like me sewing at home, I'm going to just place a mark right there. So right there is my mark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew from the top back down to this point right here. Let's pull our pin out, and I can see that I'm lined up. I'm on a good path here. My needle is going to cross right over my previous stitching. Do a quick little back tack. And we're good to go. So now that we've sewn the other stitch, what you're going to do is you're going to take your waistband and make sure it's folded out of the way. And that line that you made earlier, that chalk line, whenever you made your dart initially, that's going to be there. So we're going to make sure everything, all the rest of the pant is out of the way. All we have is our waistband in our fingers. I'm going to put a pin right there to kind of hold everything together. And I'm going to sew down that line. And sew right down the chalk line. We don't have to worry about doing a back stitch because we are going to top stitch across the stitch we just made in just a bit. Okay, so I've done a little problem solving. So earlier I told you to sew down your chalk line that you made when you initially marked your dart. Well, once I got ready to see if everything was going to fold flat, I had a bulge like this here. My waistband wouldn't lay flat. So what I did is I took out that stitch, and I kind of pulled my waistband flat, and I, with my fingers, kind of took note of where that place was that I needed to sew for the waistband to lay flat. So that's exactly what I've done right here. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to take my outside waistband, and I'm going to tuck it into the main part of the pants there, using the seam allowance that's there as my guide. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm good on the other side too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pin in it. Okay, just to kind of secure it there. And that pin is also going to serve as a guide for myself when I'm cutting along the seam, because now I'm going to trim it so that I can open it up and butterfly it underneath this waistband here. I'm going to take my good sharp scissors and I'm going to trim about 1/4 of an inch from the seam. And we're also going to trim our waistband about 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to lay everything nice and flat. Pull out any unnecessary threads that we didn't pull out earlier, because the next step is we're going to top stitch everything back together, and this side of our pants will be complete. So we're just going to open up those seams, open them up, so that they lay nice and flat. You could even take them to the iron if you wanted to and press them, but I'm just going to give them a good finger press here. Okay, just double checking the other side, making sure everything's in there. See, doesn't that look nice? Once we get everything in and laid back down, get everything tucked back into the waistband like we need it, we can take a pin, put it in there. Okay, everything looks good. Tuck the raw edges into the waistband there. Looks nice. All right, looking good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to the sewing machine and I'm going to just start with my needle where I have my previous stitching, and I'm going to run a stitch opening this seam here. Oh, let's take our scissors and snip that in there. Okay, that opened that up a little bit. Continuing on and stopping where our other stitches are on the other side, and do the same thing on the bottom, and this side of our pants will be complete. I'm gonna rotate my hand wheel. Okay, my needle's dropping right where I need it to. I'm gonna go ahead and open up that seam, make a few stitches, and I'm going to back tack 2 stitches. This right here is where that 116 needle, that size 116, comes in very handy because we're going to be stitching through multiple layers of fabric. We're going to take our pin back a little bit so we don't hit it with our needle. We're going to let the machine pull our fabric through. We're just going to help guide it. We're going to stitch very slow because it is multiple layers of fabric. Pull my needle out, pull my pin out. Once I've stitched over my previous stitching, I'm just going to back tack a little bit, cut my thread, and move on to the next side, to the bottom, or rather move on to the bottom. Lower my presser foot, lower my needle, so that it lands right in the previous stitch line. Make a few stitches. Back tack. Now, don't forget to keep those seams open. There we are. That's just going to help it lay nice and flat, and you don't want it to bother you. While it's on your body. I'm actually going to take this out. Sometimes you might have to manipulate. You notice with this needle here, or you could use a stiletto. I'm pushing some of my fabric back into the seam. Be careful not to stitch down your belt loop. Once you reach the end, back tack. Trim any threads. See, because the belt loop was covering where we were, so I just kind of pulled it right back out of the way. trim any excess threads. I see this is looking really good right through here. So now that we have completed one side, we're now going to move to the other side and do the exact same thing. Once you complete the other side, sew the tag on and your pants are complete. And then trim any loose threads. Turn your pants right side out. Once you've sewn the tag on, your pants are complete. Now let's go try them on and make sure they fit. You can see now that the waist fits really nicely and it fits the body really well. It's a quick and easy way to alter your pants. This has been a pants alteration video. I'm Aaron. I am a Baby Lock Certified Ambassador of Education. And until next time, happy sewing.